The Restoration Village, the restoration of heaven on earth through the revitalization of the African village concept. The concepts of the restoration of the African village are born out of an African godly perspective. That is, they are not founded upon any particular religion, but rather from a definite set of principles, spiritual principles that are in harmony with God. These principles become the building blocks of life and the keys for the maintenance of the planet for the benefit of all living beings. I pray that they can form the starting point for a new beginning for Africa and our people by providing the inspiration for thinking in that direction. We should not see Africa as being underdeveloped, but as being miraculously preserved by God to become the center for producing sound leadership of the human family, providing the light for a new ecologically sound social order. Therefore, we are compelled to not only raise questions about the failed direction of the past, but also to chart the course for confronting the problems of today and inspire a new direction for the future. It has been my experience that the key to our success is in assuring that our objectives and the means for obtaining them reflect a commitment to remain in harmony with the laws of God. That means that our efforts are designed to prolong, maintain, and sustain the well-being of righteous man and the earth. Considering the magnitude and the comprehensive nature of the deception that has brought us to this point, we are well aware that to change is no minor undertaking, but we are not discouraged. We understand that except men inspired of God accept the challenge of forming a new world in harmony with God, life and living, it simply will not be. The decisions that confront us are, in most cases, not easy ones. They are the decisions that will determine if our future generations will have a place on the planet Earth. The planet, as evidenced by the unprecedented occurrences of earthquakes, floods, hurricanes, and other phenomena, has utterly rejected contemporary man's position. Actually, the great majority of ecological crises threatening the continent and the globe stem from the same underlying cause, the undisciplined Euro-American contemporary society, which is guilty of polluting and wantonly destroying the Earth's ecosystems. The industrialized society of the Northern Hemisphere are using, by some estimates, more than 90% of the Earth's natural resources. This relatively recent and dramatic change in mankind's relationship to Earth, dating back no more than 500 years, has led to the collision between industrial civilization and the ecological systems of the planet. Consider the following statement made by environmental scientist Samir Abu El-Hajj of the Center for Environmental and Occupational Health Science at the Bir Zayed University in Israel. He makes the following comments. Today in the Jordan Valley, the excessive use of pesticides have tremendously increased production costs to the point where the crops can no longer be grown and marketed profitably. Herbicide residues in the soil might be at such very high levels that crops cannot even be successfully grown in the future. We that are in fact striving to save our most precious earth must not perceive the condition of the earth as being separate from the state of mind that is governing it. Remember, everything begins with a thought. Only afterwards is substance manifested. Since we agree that man's mind poses the primary threat to all life, including his own, we must also indict the institutions that trained, for in the final analysis, men are simply doing what they have been taught. It is essential that we understand that a demented mind has created an entire value system which emphasizes personal wealth above national sanity. Wherefore, if we are to succeed in this epic struggle to save the earth, the individualistic ambitions of the overdeveloped nations to attain more wealth must be resisted and subordinated for the benefit of the whole. The truth is, blessings or curses are each the fruit, the results of the works of those upon whom they fall. Thereby, in the final analysis, man either blesses or curses himself. The whole to which we refer is the whole human family, whose quality of life is being adversely affected by incorrect decisions made by the developed nations. The majority of the world's populace are victims by chance, not choice. Lands of the majority have become the dumping grounds of the minority. For example, industrialized nations are unable to dispose of the massive amounts of waste they are generating and are shipping this often toxic debris to lesser developed countries. However, the non-compromising law of relativity reminds us of the resilient nature of the earth. To continuously destroy the balance of the ecosystem while simultaneously subjugating nature for the sake of profit or material greed leads all of mankind down the path of self-destruction. Because nature's ultimate resilience has but one recourse, and that is to preserve itself. We now must put forth a new plan that can find acceptance among all of the ecosystems upon which our lives depend for survival. Our power cannot be manifested by trying to change the fundamental natural laws that govern us, but by developing a high level of consciousness of their existence and how to function in harmony with them. Otherwise, our continued violation of these natural laws will inevitably lead to more and more natural disasters. Our power will come through a spiritual rejuvenation, not an industrial or technological revolution. My faith in you is evidenced by my attempt to quicken your acceptance of reality, causing you to spring forth into full and perfect life. All things flow from Yah, the Almighty, creator of all things. In the Genesis, the first beings were created in his image and likeness in a land called Eden, paradise. Adam, the Yah kind, represented the completion of creation, initiating what I refer to as the Adamic civilization. Prophetically, Africa, or better yet, Eden, and her people are now the focus for the fate of the world. As it is written, the first shall be last, and the last shall be first. I define this to convey that the people first created in the image and likeness of the Most Holy, charged to carry out his divine will and maintain divine order on earth, have now become the last in a chaotic, evil world, and are now being called forth to lead the restoration of heaven on earth. The work to be done now in Eden, Africa, must build on revived African traditional values, lifestyles, and cultural patterns inherited as the Genesis ideal of a harmonious life with the Creator. That simply means the restoration of proper relationships between people, the forces of nature, and the spirit that conveys the Genesis ideal, all of which will be cultivated in the restoration villages to reflect values arising out of a sincere desire to be one with the Creator. In such villages, morality, decency, and proper conduct are promoted by an extended network of Yah-fearing men and women. All wealth generated within the village will be communally shared according to agreed upon guidelines. The healthy desires for pleasure and inspirational public performance will provide the basis for life-supporting creativity,
so that we may be in glory as the
instead of the insidious, frivolous, and destructive entertainment which now has the world out of balance. Our objective is for the village to be self-sustaining, utilizing the crafts and skills of the residents to create industry. Sustainable organic agriculture will be a major component of village industry, providing both food and fuel. All of the village's human, animal, and plant waste will be composted into organic matter for recycling back into the soil to promote and maintain its fertility. When considering the question of economic development and investment, we must be very selective of the types of products we desire to manufacture and make abundantly available to the populace. For essential industry, let us consider the areas of food, shelter, clothing, and institutions. Where food is concerned, we can easily supply our population with fresh fruit, vegetables, legumes, and whole grain. And perhaps the canning or jarring of the few items not available throughout the year, but for which it has been determined that they are desired or required during the off-season. It should be the same in our building and clothing industries. We should seek to establish industry to complement and supply products wherefrom we become locally self-sufficient. The concern is that during the initial stages of development, we not steer far away from vertically integrated economic development, such as projects in which the success depends on no outside sources, just the mobility and energy of those the project seeks to serve. The village's health care will be promoted by their understanding of life management, or is what we will refer to as health literacy, life management principles, and reinforced by low-stress living, contentment, life-giving foods, and yaw-centered spirituality. Each village's healthcare center will bring medical services and information closer to the rural population, saving lives and alleviating suffering, the impact of which will be most immediately realized through facilitating simpler access to the village's birthing facility, which will mitigate or reduce to a minimum the problems that result from prenatal or childbirth-related causes. In addition, utilizing well-developed indigenous knowledge and truth science, harmonized with the Creator, will end all unnecessary suffering resulting from alien-imposed knowledge, worldviews, and clever but life-threatening technology. We realize that many of the things being promoted by the Western world sound progressive and beneficial. Nevertheless, they are designed strictly for the purpose of more tightly integrating the people of Africa into their world economy and monetary system, and subsequently under their material control. The purpose is to bring about a greater dependence of thinking processes, systems, and technologies that are controlled by those in opposition to divine order. Inherent in the design of modern society are mechanisms that facilitate the process of dominion, domination, and control, strictly for advancing the objectives of the oppressors. Contemporary Western education only prepares you to be put into service on their behalf. The understanding gained by logical thinking using the your mind makes evident the intrinsic character of the prevalent ungodly cultural offspring born of an alien conceptualization of the earth. This conceptualization alienates us from the Genesis idea, or the your mind. Little effort is required to see the obvious results of a deceptive progress. The modern way of life has been disastrous for the people and the earth itself. Possibly, we may conclude that it is really a blessing that Africa has not been heavily contaminated with this mindset. When it is so obvious, why have we not concluded that planting the seeds of Western society will only grow to manifest the same kinds of patterns of discord and strife? Truthfully, the economic policies of the so-called advanced nations and corporations of today are failing to serve the essential needs of society for human dignity and oneness with God. For the developing African nation that is earnestly seeking a better way, none of the existing models can help. In testimony to this legacy of failure, the following excerpt from Newsweek sheds light on the World Bank's dismal record of failure in Africa.
Nowhere is better judgment needed than in Africa, the only region in an increasingly privatized world where the bank still commands a central financing and policy role. After a decade of following World Bank advice, living standards in Africa have fallen by 2% annually. Unemployment has quadrupled to 100 million, and real wages have plunged by a third. Across Africa, projects funded by the World Bank have become synonymous with financial mismanagement, environmental degradation, displacement of vulnerable populations, and corruption. "50 years after the bank began lending out a total of $350 billion for some 6,000 projects, it is finally raising the question of whether such projects work."
The pursuit of money and materialism have become so important that social, environmental, and spiritual consequences no longer seem to matter. Gone is the concern for collective well-being. And while they are loath to admit it, the advanced industrial nations begrudgingly have to face their inability to stop the decline. Perhaps Norman Lear, noted American writer and television producer, said it best in a 1993 article entitled Tender Truth, when he wrote, "The truth is that living by the numbers is not a happy way to live one's life." Let's face it, America is not a nation enjoying its material success, and it should be obvious by now that a higher GNP, a faster computer chip, and interactive televisions with 500 channels are not going to address the hole in America's heart, a direct result of the spiritual poverty of our time, end quote. Vanishing jobs and the fear of unemployment have transformed workers in industrialized nations into virtual slaves to a constantly shifting job market. They are working harder, performing even more tasks, and consequently are more anxious and less satisfied with their lives overall. Before you get the impression that I am totally opposed to the use of any technology, let me state that that is not the case. The concern I am expressing is that the pursuit of money and materialism has produced a distorted thinking process in man with no regard for the obvious natural laws of limitations. There are limits that men cannot ignore and remain in harmony with the life cycles of Almighty God. Initially, technology was to be a great savings, giving us more and costing us less. We must now consider the end result of applied technology and what it truthfully has cost us. What we have paid with our ecosystems and the value lost on our human resources. The countries pushing high tech have made abundant human resources the Earth's major problem. Subsequently, they are looking for solutions to overpopulation instead of overdevelopment. Obviously, I view the problem as being too many machines performing jobs, or better stated, taking the jobs once done by people. What benefit is it to develop a social system that employs unlimited machinery and leaves people idle and homeless? Who would downgrade the value and need for a people in such a way? And why would they? Are we being snared in a mindset of development suicide that compels us to see the great human resources as a disposable burden? Enlightened governments must now demonstrate bold leadership and seize the power to define the role of business under its authority. Governments must accept the responsibility to emphasize to the individual by way of education and the corporation by way of standards of accountability that employment and business are functions of national service and exist not just for their personal gain. Every undertaking must be measured according to this principle. Again, we are not ignoring the income-earning functions of business and labor. These are pragmatic considerations as well, which have not been lacking as men have been doing business and making money for centuries. Yet, they have not included in their quarterly reports or State of the Union reviews the kind of spiritual evaluation that will make sacred the workplace, align the corporation, and protect the nation. Their statement demonstrates that men clearly see the problem, but are unable to avoid it. They are trapped, and I repeat, they are trapped in a world of competition, and it is beyond their ability to free themselves. Governments not only have the right, but also the responsibility to question the positive or negative impact of an enterprise. If this responsibility had been exercised in the past, would we have businesses such as the tobacco industry? With government permission and subsidy, this evil industry manufactures and markets a product responsible for the death of 425,000 Americans and millions of others worldwide annually. Make no mistake, the earth cannot stand for China, India, South America, and Africa to become replicas of America and Europe. There would be no clean air, water, or land left anywhere, nor mineral resources. All of humanity and all of the ecosystems would be overwhelmed by waste. Much is being written about this crisis. To achieve the objectives we are striving for, the principles, rhythms, vibrations, and cycles, set times of divine order must guide everything we do. Remember, the ends are not separate from the means. The process we use to accomplish something will characterize the result. We must encourage the restoration of faith to believe that another direction for science, a less destructive kind of technology, a fair system of labor and management, and a truly progressive development can be rediscovered, rekindled, and applied. We must believe that a different kind of social order and lifestyle can be developed, which is effective, comfortable, and satisfying. Science and technology, realigned with truth, will become much more elaborate and interesting in our pursuit of life. But its intrinsic nature will remain interconnected with the divine order of the creation, and subsequently far less prone to being exploited and put into the service of the forces of chaos, discord, and individualism. We acknowledge and verify that there is a divine order for man and the universe, which was initially breathed into Adam as his breath of life. In the Adamic African worldview, truth, science, and spirituality are unified in a system of knowledge that provides guidance for the Adamic civilization, how to protect, balance, enhance, and move in harmony with the earth's beauty. The objective of evil is to, in some way, convince you not to subordinate yourself to that order, and even that there are no consequences for failure to do so. The objective of our effort is to build modern communal villages throughout the interior that will serve as both model and training grounds for all men and women desiring to restore heaven on earth. I call it Getting to Heaven Alive. Our indigenous local African family will provide the human resources, joined by those in the diaspora who are committed to the fulfillment of a similar vision for the restoration of the Adamic civilization. Africans of the diaspora would greatly benefit from the village during visits, vacations, and apprenticeships, being assisted in the casting off of the binding, blinding Western mentality and acclimatizing themselves to righteous living. Thereafter, they could join the village or proceed to build new ones. The truth is that in any African country where there is relative peace, I have found more genuine happiness than I have found among Africans vainly trying to fit into the cities of America and Europe. Among our brothers and sisters living in the diaspora, there is persistent anxiety and stress fueled by racism, socio-economic inequality, and the nagging desire for more material wealth. On the contrary, life in our own land is made sacred by our family values and willingness to share. Continental Africans would also visit, vacation, and apprentice at these villages to learn skills and access bountiful internal resources that will facilitate their going back to their own villages and transforming them into vital, life-promoting places. Soon, if not already, providing atmospheres conducive to clear and creative thinking will become the most sought-after service industry on the planet. More and more people are in search of and in need of a break from the trauma of trying to survive in an anti-life environment. I am speaking of much more than a resort or retreat in the traditional sense. It is recommended that we build an ecologically compatible spiritual advance. Note, not retreat, spiritual advance, where people may come to rest and think. A 7-star environment instead of a 5-star hotel. Those in control of this world need time to rethink the present trends and the policies responsible for them. They need a break from themselves. Africa should develop and promote spiritual advances where no animals or animal byproducts are served. There will be no stealing, no prostitutes or immodest dress, no negative television, lewd video, vulgar music, or provocative dancing. Properly developed, we can make the African Edenic environment the most desirable in the world. These advances would be spiritual sanctuaries, providing respite for peace of mind, body, and soul. Tenants would be invited to participate in the planting or harvesting of foods as a natural experience of the presence and power of God. There will be communal dining at least once a day and healthful recreation to reacquaint residents with the joy and energy that come from interacting with people of like mind. No alcoholic beverages other than naturally fermented wine will be available. In addition to comfortable accommodation, these beautiful, serene rooms will inspire prayer and meditation. Let us show the beauty of what we have as men return to the cradle of civilization for inspiration to return to the Genesis idea as we share with them a new beginning.
Let's get our house in order. Let's get our house in order. Let's get our house in order.